And shutting off your mind and going into the silence and becoming contemplative is how you have that experience. And the experience is self-validating. Once you had it, then you assume you're experiencing God when in fact you are not. Oh, no, excuse me. I have one more slide here on Tolle. You cannot understand it through thought, but you can sense it. See what I mean? What if there really are demons in the world? What if Satan really does transform himself into an angel of light? What if you could have a spiritual experience that you really thought was God, but it turned out to be from Satan because he wants to drag you to hell? What if that's possible? That's a fatal flaw. If Satan and demons are real, this whole thing fails, because then you can no longer trust your experience alone. I'm not saying these experiences aren't real. I'm saying they're not from God. They're the delusion of Satan. Let's look at now a new author that works for Oprah Winfrey. Marianne Williamson is the XM radio host of Oprah's radio show, and she's written a number of books. She's a New Age author, and the one that I bought and read is called Illuminata. And here's what she says. Jesus is truth. The Torah is truth. Muhammad is truth. Krishna is truth. Buddha is truth. And so on. They are all truth, and they are all among us now. The New Jerusalem means unification of the world's spiritual traditions. How do you come to that conclusion? Well, you have to shut off rationality. I once was witnessing to a person back when I was at seminary, and she said to me, well, all the religions are saying the same thing. All paths lead to God. They're all saying the same thing. And I said, no, what you just said is patently false, and I can prove it to you. She says, how are you going to prove that? I said, well, because Christianity teaches that God existed from all eternity as God, that God created the world out of nothing, that the world is distinct from God, the universe is distinct from God, that God is sovereign and transcendent over his own creation, and that God is going to judge us at the end of the age, depending on whether we responded to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Hinduism teaches that all of the things that we see are just an illusion, and God is all there is. Those two things can't both be true. You could claim that Hinduism is true and Christianity is false, but you can't say they're both true. But see, in this whole postmodern milieu, rationality has gotten a bad name, and we no longer have to think rationally, especially when it comes to religion. And so then we'll accept totally rationality. That what this very winsome and interesting person, Marianne Williamson, is saying is impossible to be true. It cannot possibly be true because of the law of non-contradiction. But then that's reason, and they don't want to use reason. By the way, when you get two people on TV, so this Marianne Williamson is just as winsome and attractive and interesting as Oprah is. And when the two of them get on and they start talking about this stuff, it just sucks people into it. People want to hear. People want to see. People want to be like these ladies. It's packaged very, very well, dear ones. Here's what Williamson teaches, though, spiritual alchemy. Earth, is trying to return to paradise. By the way, come back this afternoon. I'm going to show that the emergent church teaches the exact same thing. We have a Christian version of everything these people are saying with slight distinctions. Earth, is trying to return to paradise. So see, history is not heading toward judgment. History is heading toward paradise. We have the power to affect those changes, says Williamson, to harness the energy of the earth and to turn its outbursts into positive expression. Because the energy of the earth is also within us. The ways of worship of genuine spiritual devotion are rites by which we can alchemize our world within and without. So the old idea of alchemy was we're going to turn lead into gold, base are going to turn into things valuable. Never happened. Lead stays lead, gold stays gold. A periodic table still works. But now we've turned to spiritual alchemy because that's easier to sell. If you try to sell the lead to gold and you can't ever actually do it, you end up with the utter skepticism. But if you talk about spiritual alchemy, when you really can't see if it's actually happening or not, you just believe the world's getting better, then you can sell it to people because now you don't have to have the burden of any kind of proof. Our only choice is whether to awaken now or later. Notice the same word as Tolle, awaken. Awaken to what? Awaken to our deity. Then she continues, so it is that the earth as we know it will yet transform into a thing of grace and beauty. The journey of the Son of God is the energetic unfoldment of all spirit and matter. Now note that term, unfoldment. Unfoldment. I heard a theologian at this Emergent Church Conference use the same term. What they mean is that God got enfolded into the universe, and spiritual evolution is God unfolding within it. The deity of all things is at hand. The world is spiritually evolving to something better. Now, can you imagine Satan's excitement about all of this? Getting a whole culture of people to think that they never have to worry about future judgment, that everything's headed toward paradise. Well, if I would have believed this, if I would have honestly believed this, by the grace of God, I'd never even heard these ideas when I was young. But if I would have really believed this, why would I have any reason to go to God through the gospel? You don't need a gospel because you don't have any bad news. There's no judgment. There's no sin. Everything's going to turn into God. It's just a matter of time. So you can either hasten the evolutionary process or drag your feet, but nothing's going to change the fact that it happens. In fact, they say that if there's temporary setbacks, everything reorganizes itself within the universe and evolution just restarts. That's what they say. As we surrender, says Williamson, our despair to the process of God's alchemical action within us, the pain moves through us more quickly, our illumination moves it out. So you got to let God's alchemical action get started here if you want this process to happen faster. Why be a human being when you can evolve into a God? If you've ever driven in traffic, would you think that all these people out here are gods? Would you trust yourself into their hands? I mean, just stand in line. Oh, man. Let me show you some of the stuff. This is a website. I realize that this is too small for you to read, but I wanted it just so you know this exists. This is from a website called occultadvances.org, occult-advances.org. And it says here 10 spiritual lessons. I'll read them to you because you can't. It's too small. Number 1, spiritual alchemy mind works. Number 2, Kabbalah and the tree of life symbol. Number 3, chakra systems, pictures and chart. Number 4, human aura reading and cleansing. Number 5, elemental magic, fire, water, earth, and so on. Number 6, Kabbalistic spiritual enlightenment in Jewish mysticism. Number 7, the alchemical great work. 8, Kundalini awakening, Kundalini yoga rising course. They got that in the church too, by the way. 9, energy medicine ascension. 10, positive change alchemy. And then one of them is temple rebuilding. That's interesting, isn't it? This is just trying to bring all the world's religions into this alchemy that's going to transform reality into something better. It's going to turn our world of lead into a world of gold. Do you believe the world is getting better and better? Have you noticed it? See, that's the thing. There's no data to support any of this. It's just in people's minds. Okay, Williamson. What has been his crime, God's? What is his crime that we do not allow the all-empowering force of the universe to help us or even give us comfort? We are taught such lies as children. What kind of lies is she worried about that we were taught as children and she's talking about in church? Here's what she says. Lies about God's anger, about his revenge and his judgment. The problem, says Marianne Williamson, is that you went to church when you were a kid and they told you that God has wrath against sin. Dear ones, believe me, I was in seminary when they brought in a new therapeutic model of church. And they were going to start a new program called Marriage and Family Therapy. And I went to the seminar of the person who's now ahead of that program and has been for over 10 years. And in the seminar, she told us that the reason we have so many psychological problems in the church today is that children in Sunday school were told that God was angry with sin. And they grow up having a father complex, thinking of bad things about the Father because they were taught that God is angry against sin. And she used as an example a little song in Sunday school, "Be careful, little feet, where you go, the Father up above is looking down in love." So that builds a negative father image of a God who has wrath against sin. Now we have psychological problems, and the cure, according to this lady at seminary, is therapy. So the evangelical church teaching the Bible is psychologically damaging all of the children so that when they grow up, they need therapy. So here we have a New Ager saying the problem is that we are taught lies, that God is angry with sin. And now we have evangelical therapists teaching the same thing. We might as well bring the New Age right on into the church. Is God angry with sin? Yes or no? But God is a loving God because he sent a Savior to pay the price for our sin. There's nothing psychologically damning about the Christian gospel. It's liberating. Look at Williamson, page 53, Illuminata. Interesting title, by the way. Quote, "The Christ is not a Christian concept. The Christ is a force of nature, our nature." Oh, that Jesus was the Christ is not a Christian concept. So says Oprah's darling Marianne Williamson, who's in charge of her XM radio show. Do you know what your friends and relatives are being taught when they turn on the radio and the TV? They're being inoculated against the gospel of Jesus Christ. The silence again. The highest level of prayer, says Williamson, is not a prayer for anything. It is a deep and profound silence in which we allow ourselves to be still and know him. This is simply the same mysticism that we've warned about in previous Faith at Risk conferences, the contemplative spirituality that's coming into the church. The same stuff taught on a DVD called Be Still and Know That I Am God, taught by Richard Foster, Beth Moore, and these other mystics. Enter the silence. Enter the silence. Well, so you can do it as a Christian, or you can do it as a New Ager, but you're still entering the silence and you're still getting the same deception. Now let's go to Rhonda Byrne. I'm going to quote her, and then I'm going to show you something here. Rhonda was also an Oprah guest. "You are God." Now, who was it that said we could be like God? Satan. "You are God in a physical body. You are spirit in the flesh. You are eternal life expressing itself as you. You are a cosmic being. You are all power." My. So why is it that we have all these problems? Why do you have to do the wash every week? And why do you have to go to work? And, why do you have to go to the doctor when you get sick? It doesn't make any sense. You are all power. She says, continuing, you are all wisdom. You are all intelligence. You are perfection. You are magnificence. You are the creator. And you creating the creation of you on this planet. Wow. Again, Rhonda Byrne. The amazing work and discoveries of the quantum physicists over the last 80 years has brought us to a greater understanding of the unfathomable power of the human mind to create. I'm going to talk about this more fully this afternoon because the I might as well call them New Agers, but the emergent church